Hey everyone, and welcome back to Ontario Cryptids. I hope you all are doing well. You might hear a slightly different tone in my voice today. I woke up this morning feeling a bit congested. Anyways, let's take a look at what we will be covering today. Today we are going to take a look at the craziness happening in our skies, and we will cover 3 encounter stories. I sincerely want to thank everyone who leaves a like and a comment. Also, thanks to all of the recent subscribers and the rest of you who come back each week to watch these episodes. If you have an encounter story that you would like to share, then please forward your stories to OntarioCryptids@gmail.com. I would be honored to share your story with like-minded people. Now, sit back and relax as we begin with today's encounters. All right, as promised, we're going to talk about the craziness that's been going on in our skies for the past 2 weeks. So, starting on Wednesday, February 1st, a Chinese balloon is spotted above Montana. Now, it's speculation whether it's from China or not, but that is how the tale is being told. Then on Saturday, February 4th, Chinese balloon is shot down by F-22 off the coast of South Carolina after having drifted across the country. Then, it doesn't stop there, folks. On Thursday, February the 9th, the first UFO is detected off the coast of northern Alaska. Friday, February 10th, UFO is shot down by an F-22 over Dead Horse, Alaska. Then on Saturday, February 11th, the second UFO is shot down by an F-22 over Mayo, Yukon, Canada. FAA shuts down the airspace over Montana, citing another possible UFO, but NORAD claims it was a radar anomaly. Then on Saturday, February 12th, the third UFO is detected over the Great Lakes, over the U.S., and it is shot down by an F-16. Let's take a listen to what the pilot of the F-16 had to say when he shot down the object over Lake Huron on Sunday.
Odd. Definitely looks like something, there's some kind of object that's suspended in the air. It's hard to tell. It's pretty small. I cannot see it outside of my eyes. I just can't see it with my eyes with the glare in the cockpit. It's so small, but it looks like black hot works a little better as well. If it's metallic or what, and there's, I can see like lines coming down below, but I can't see anything below it. It's definitely smaller than a car. It's on like kind of like the north side, even though the sun's up there to the south. It's kind of like a blackish, I'm going to call it like a container. I can't really tell though what the shape is. 1730 either. The only thing is just the size of it. It's just so slow and so small and you can't see it because it's so close. I'd honestly be worried about hitting it before you knowing it was there. Pretty good visual on that pass. It's like a octagonal shape, I'm going to call it a balloon. You can definitely see strings hanging down below, but I don't see anything below it. It's pretty small, I don't know, size of like a four-wheeler or something. Just to give it a shot, we got plenty of time with the lake, but we're welcome to do this. Hunter Station 11, you guys probably track it better than I am, but just looking at the lake, we got about 50 miles from one of this basically over the water before it's back over the land. So I guess 10 to 15 minutes out there. So just some kind of dark object, you can see some strings or something hanging down below it. Can't tell if it's holding anything. Based on the fact that it looks dark, but I can get a pretty good sun glint off of it. It definitely looks like something, there's some kind of object that's suspended in the air. It's hard to tell. It's pretty small. I cannot see it outside of my eyes. Looks like black hot works a little better as well on the 35.
So this was only partial of the conversation that was occurring in the cockpit. The actual length that I found was about 3 minutes and 30 seconds along those lines, and I think I've captured about half of that. There's also this shot that you're seeing right now that was taken from the cockpit, although it doesn't state what date this was taken at. So the first object we know was some balloon, but we're not sure if they have found the other 3 objects that were shot down. I know they were searching for them, but they haven't come out and said, yes, we found it, or no, we haven't. But there's been some pretty interesting statements from government officials stating that it was not extraterrestrial or aliens. Now, I'm going to show you 3 clips which came from civilians. 2 of them appear to be in Mexico. They're all showing, 2 of them are showing like a tic-tac object. One of them is showing some bizarre-looking cloud formation. In any case, why don't I just let them play so you can take a look and make your own decision.
Pero mira, justo en el momento en que nos vinimos, mira.
No se mueve, mira.
No, que eso dura así parado, no te digo que nosotros fuimos, así fue como el que nosotros vimos. Qué arrecho. Eso no van a creer ese cuento, te lo juro que cuando digamos lo grabaste, si lo grabaste, grabaron.
Se está yendo, mira, se está yendo.
Se fue, porque
se está yendo.
Era de aquí para
se está
allá.
yendo.
Coño, pero gracias a Dios, sí lo grabaste, vamos
sí.
Really can't make this shit up right now, guys. Look at that. They're doing something. Look at that. I'm busy.
All right, here's the first encounter story. It takes place the summer of July 10th of 2019. We're going to Klickitat County, Washington, and the nearest town is White Salmon. On July 10th of 2019, after whitewater rafting on the White Salmon River in Washington State, I observed an extremely tall hominid walk across the river. I would estimate its height to be 7 feet 6 inches plus range, but it was skinny. I was resting after rafting and hiking approximately 1 mile down a trail. This is a calmer stretch of the White Salmon River, watching other kayakers go by occasionally. Here, the river is usually no more than 2 feet deep. After a period with no kayakers, about 30 minutes, I watched what I can only describe as a Sasquatch or Bigfoot walk out of the woods about 80 yards away on the opposite side of the river and cross the river. It was coming slightly in my direction as it crossed. I was startled, terrified, and had my camera phone on me, but realized I could not open the camera app likely in time to get a pic or video. So I observed it closely for the dozen or so seconds it took to cross the river. As I said, at least 7.5 feet or taller, based on the fact that I could see its head at or above the trees on the riverbank that it went through. The hominid was covered in very black hair, with noticeable bare areas across the chest and hip area, also less hair under the armpit. The hair on its head was also black and looked very much like shorter dreadlocks. I could see the nose and lips, very human-like, but not the eyes. It crossed the river not in a great hurry, but just like it wanted to get out of the open. I believe it saw me at its closest approach, about 50 yards, because it turned its body slightly in my direction and that is when I could see the face, nose, and lips. It crossed the river, went through the trees, and then I could hear it going up a large embankment. I was shocked and had an almost overwhelming sense of fear, and I would not talk about it for a while. I talked with an old-timer lady in the area. She was confident I had seen one of their teenagers. They're tall and skinny, just like ours, she said. This next one takes place August of 2022. We're going to be going to Oxford County, Maine, and the nearest town is Greenwood. During the spring-summer of 2022, I discovered a new favorite remote trout pond not far from my camp. This pond is roughly 1 mile hike to access. Hiking trails are present, however, in the roughly 20 plus times that I visited this pond, I saw a total of 5 other people. The 2 pairs of hikers and 1 other lone fisherman. This pond is notorious for wind, so I would only visit it on calm days. The more I visited the pond, the more I noticed odd occurrences. I personally had never heard a tree fall in the woods until I started going here. Just during my visit to this pond, I heard 5 tree falls, although it should be noted that I saw none of them. In addition to this, I heard an innumerable number of tree knocks during my visits. My visits here started in April and ended in August. The activity grew greater as the summer progressed. I noted how odd the coincidence of the tree falls was, but thought nothing of it until one of my final visits. The peak of the activity was during this visit in mid-August, where I heard 2 tree falls. This piqued my attention off fishing and onto what was going on around me. I noticed on this trip that every time I paddled to the north of the pond, I was met with tree knocks. This continued until I noticed the midsection of a birch tree leaned up against another tree on the water's edge. I had paddled up and down that pond at least 100 times over the course of the spring-summer, and I had only now noticed the birch tree. I felt as though it had to have been placed there while I was on the south side of the pond. As I was examining the tree from my canoe, I again heard tree knocks again. I then paddled back to the south end and fished there until light began to fade and got ready to hike out. Near the pond, large rocks blocked the trail to ensure no ATV can drive directly to the pond. On these rocks sat a perfectly intact birch tree skin. I'm not convinced a person couldn't have done these things. However, given the proximity of my experiences to another sighting on this website, I felt I should report them. I never had any weird occurrences while hiking in, out, or around a pond. Only when I was on the pond fishing. This one here comes from a viewer, and we're going to be heading to the Peace River District in British Columbia, and the nearest town is Fort St. John. Sir Roy's account was set up from a dude living off-grid near Thunder Bay, as I'm not too tech-savvy, but onto the story of my upbringing in northern British Columbia on the Alaskan Highway. My mother was influenced by a monster stepfather who moved into my father's motel, and our father Lawrence had not much choice but to move to Vancouver Island, and my uncle Charles got him a job at BC Hydro. My father was a bus driver for Canadian Coachways, then changed to Greyhounds, so he traveled the barely untouched lands of Canada, and my mother was to run the Red Wing Motel on the edge of Fort St. John. This stepfather, who was a monster to my 4 older sisters, Glenda, Arlene, Donna, Sherry, me, Richard, and my younger brother Billy, William, he changed his name. The girls he hardly ever did anything to, but my mother and I were his punching bag. Later, after I was kicked out of my home at about age 13, he then focused on Billy. Our motel was long and straight and had about 10 rooms, but the back of the motel had a very high rectangular windows, and I would wake up in the middle of the night to these eyes peeking in. I would run out of the front door screaming and running down the street away from the motel, mostly wintertime, and I wouldn't wake up till I was about half a mile from the motel in my bare feet. My mother would say it was some witch she had a problem with, but the windows were way too high for the witch to look in. It was bad in the summer. I would head to the bush for the weekend because the monster could only beat me a little bit on Sundays because I had to go to school on Monday. Now that I'm older and I listen to other stories, I have to wonder if the Sasquatch was trying to save me and not scare me, like telepathically getting me to create bush games like climbing small popular trees and using them like an elevator to the ground. My friends loved my dangerous bush games. Building forts in the trees away from the monster, I constantly adventured in the Peace Hills behind the motel. A little tiny kid, no weapons. How did I do that by myself? I was fearless, nature against the little kid. I just had to get away from the monster back then. If a woman called the cops for getting beaten up, the cops would arrest a woman and pat the monster on the back for the beatings. I totally believe it was Sasquatch at the window at the motel, and not only was Sasquatch watching the monsters beating up my mother, that they were watching different rooms as everyone around the world had to drive up that world-famous Alaska highway, and they were watching and listening to all different kinds of cultures and languages. I believe that the Sasquatch was telepathically teaching me to live in the backwoods and teaching me powers and gifts to protect myself. I have been followed and targeted my entire life, Men in Black, just as some of your previous followers and stories. Incredible strength, can lift a car, etc., read minds, prediction, future predictions, dream out-of-body experiences. I've solved crimes with my mind, and the perps, a lot of them are dirty government and cops, politicians, humans abusing this planet that was given to all of us to cherish and not destroy. I have been in a space disk, hubcap. They are only scary and unnerving because that's what the dirty government has taught us, for the power over us is the fear factor, to keep us in line for their greed. It gets better. I've been filmed all over Canada. All animals come to my touch, especially wild ones, telepathically, and events like lightning bolts, pounding them, earthquakes, storms, floods, native, medicine wheels, 4 equals earth, water, fire, and the good government try to help me, but the royal monarchy is my enemy, for my real last name is Windsor and not Roy. Roy was an adopted name. My grandmother was from Ireland, a Dunnan, and my grandfather was a Windsor. These rich families are supposed to look after this planet, not rape it. I believe in 1977 in England, a message from space took over their TV stations. Message to get it together and clean up the planet. Just before I got Revelation 19 in the good book, the Red Cross, on my right thigh, King of Kings and Lord of Lords written in blood. Time is short. I encourage you and all to clean up your 21 grams, your soul that leaves your body when you pass. If you read between the lines, you will absorb everyone's life path is in their book of life. Our stories are very connected, and it's a tug and pull of good versus evil. Contact me anytime. Richard Lawrence Windsor, offspring of the royal family. I hope you all enjoyed today's episode. Thank you, Sir Roy, for allowing me to share your life experiences. I'm not going to lie, I was a bit apprehensive of sharing his personal experiences of his stepdad, but Richard assured me that he wanted it all told. On another note, I have to say I find it odd that the jet fighters were able to shoot down the UAPs over Canada and the US. If they are anything like the Tic Tac UFOs we've seen, in my mind there would be no chance of our missiles even coming close to hitting them. So what is really going on? Okay, if these stories reminded you of an encounter that you may have had and would like to share, then please forward your stories to OntarioCryptids@gmail.com. I would be honored to share your story on this channel. Thank you all for listening until the end. I truly appreciate it. Please hit the like button on your way out and smash the subscribe button if you're new to my channel. Have a great weekend, and I hope to see you all next week, right here on Ontario Cryptids.